Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Hamish Hodder, and today we're going to be talking about how you can invest in your 20s. We're going to be talking about all of the major ways you can invest, and that is including but not limited to the stock market. So of course, my channel here, we talk all about the stock market and how you can effectively invest your money in order to grow it into more money in the future. But that's not going to be the focus of this video. We're just going to be talking about investing overall, and I'm going to share with you my opinion on how you should approach investing if you're in your 20s or in your teens. Just before we get into the video, I want you to go below this video and leave a comment down there and let me know what are the ways that you're planning on investing in 2019. But let's just get straight into it. So the first thing that you want to do, the first and very most important way that you should be investing in 2019 is to be investing in yourself. Now, this is thrown around a lot on the internet, but I really don't see anyone explaining what this actually means. Because a lot of people might hear a bunch of people talking on YouTube saying, yeah, invest in yourself, but what does that even mean? How do you invest in yourself? A lot of people would get stuck at that, and they might think it's one thing when it actually is another thing. So I'm going to explain it to you, and I'm going to break it down how you should be investing in yourself. So essentially, the definition of investing in yourself, in my eyes, is to spend money and or time in the short term in order to provide yourself long-term benefits. When you're growing up as a kid, pretty much everything in your mind is short-term. You don't have any really long-term goals. You probably don't have any career aspirations when you're just a kid, when you're between the ages, below the age of 15. You're not really thinking about what you're going to be doing when you're 30, 40, or 50, or even beyond that. You generally don't have too many responsibilities. I know a lot of kids have jobs when they're teenagers, or their parents get them to do chores around the house. But beyond that, there's really no responsibility that you assume as an individual. And because of this, a lot of teenagers and a lot of kids who come into their 20s have really no concept of making a short-term sacrifice in order to achieve a long-term goal and in order to reap the benefits over the long term of something that they've done in the past. But as an adult, if you want to succeed in life, you start to realize that you do need to start thinking about the long term. And the reason for this is because as real as the short term feels, you're going to spend the vast majority of your life experiencing the consequences of your past decisions. So if you make smart decisions now in the short term, smart sacrifices in the short term, then over the long term, in the vast majority of your life, the very, very great majority of your life is going to be experiencing the positive consequences of those decisions. So that brings us to talking about what are the actual ways that you can invest in yourself. And I like to break it down into three major categories, but essentially all of these categories come down to education. You want to educate yourself. Well, it's really two things. You want to educate yourself and you want to take action on the education that you've acquired. And really the three major areas in which you can educate yourself and then take action is in your health, in your relationships, and in your finances. By spending time and sometimes money expanding your knowledge in these areas, you will exponentially experience positivity in those areas over the long term. So if you pick up a book and read it, the positivity that you experience out of that book doesn't just last while you're reading it. Like, you don't close the book and everything you read is just forgotten. Or, well, I mean, for some people it is, but if that's what you're like, then you need to educate yourself in how to consume knowledge from books. But if you're reading a book, the moment you put it down, you still have that knowledge for quite some time. You experience the benefits of it beyond the short term of you actually reading it. The fact that you yourself are sitting out there watching this YouTube video means that you're already taking steps, you're already educating yourself in the financial education space. And that's a really, really good thing, because of course that means that you're expanding your knowledge in finances. And when you click off this YouTube video, the knowledge that you learn from this video or some other videos that you learn in terms of investing in, maybe it's specifically investing in the stock market if you're watching my other content, or maybe it's real estate, or maybe it's just improving yourself, and maybe you're watching other videos on your health and relationships, you're not just going to forget all of that once you close the YouTube video. That's going to stay with you. And as long as you don't just educate yourself, as long as you educate yourself and then take action on what you've learned and actually implement it into your life, then you're going to experience exponential benefit from that. Now, for me personally, I've spent the vast majority of my time since I left high school for the past few years just educating myself on finances, because that's an area that I've found really fascinating. It's a real passion for me. So I've just spent I've spent every single day since I left high school reading books, watching videos, and just learning and teaching myself what I need to do in order to be financially secure, because I think that's really important. And that's been really great for me because I've seen a whole lot of benefit that has already happened, but it's also going to be exponential over the rest of my life because the information that I've acquired over the last few years, and by focusing on that information, that's going to benefit me for many, many years to come. But more recently, I've been focusing more, especially in 2019, on my health and my relationships. And this means that I've just been learning a lot more about the importance of maintaining healthy relationships with your family, and also with having a healthy relationship with your body, maintaining your health, exercising regularly, eating healthy, and meditating, making sure that you're keeping your mental health in check, because that is just as important, if not more important, than your physical health. And what this has actually taught me is that health and relationships is really the foundation on which you can build the rest of your life. So what I thought would happen was, I had to take some of my focus away from my finances in order to focus on my health and my relationships. And I thought that this would be negative in terms of my growth in the finance space. And by growth in the finance space, I mean by my effectiveness of investing and also just my success of my online business. But what I found was, by focusing on my health and on my relationships, I actually became a lot more productive in terms of my finances, and I've been able to get a hell of a lot more done in the less time that I'm spending on finances. So before, I was spending all my time on finances, pretty much all my time on finances, and I was getting a fair amount done, but I wasn't very productive. And then I just pivoted away from that for a little bit, and I spent some time eating healthier, exercising regularly, and getting those routines down. And because of that, it's made the work that I do, even though it's less work, the work that I do on my business is a lot more productive and a lot more focused. And I'm actually getting more done because of it. So you definitely don't want to just pick one and neglect the others. I think all three are really important, and we'll talk about finances in a sec because, of course, that's the area that I'm most educated in. But if you do want to learn more about health and relationships, then I can recommend a book by Tim Ferriss, which is called Tools of Titans. And it's essentially a collection of all of these tips and tricks and sort of ideas by successful people. And these are people who have been successful in terms of their health, in terms of creating money, or in terms of their wisdom. And there's a lot of philosophers in there and that sort of thing. So you can learn a lot about each of those areas and how you can improve those three areas that we've been talking about: your health, your relationships, and your finances. And that book is really good for getting your routines down. And I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. But I thought, now that I've just sort of covered that, because finance is the area that I am most knowledgeable in, I thought we would spend the rest of the video talking about how you can make financial investments in yourself, because that is what I've been doing for the past few years. And I can tell you what I've done that has been successful and what hasn't been successful, and sort of the structure that I think you should approach going forward in terms of your career and maintaining yourself financially, and also becoming financially free. So financial education for me doesn't just mean that you're investing in stocks or in real estate. That's sort of one type of financial education, but financial education for me goes a little bit broader. For me, it means that you're taking steps towards protecting yourself financially. And that might sound the same as what I just mentioned, but it's a hell of a lot more than just investing your money. You need to get that money from somewhere in the first place, and I think that is exactly where it starts. I think the first step that you need to do is you need to work out where that income is going to come from that you're going to be able to funnel into investments later in life. So the first step is that you need to secure yourself an income. And that doesn't just mean going out and getting a quick job, because that's not a long-term solution. What it means is really sitting down and thinking about what career path you want to take. And this is going to be more relevant for people who are at the very start of their 20s, because if you're in your late 20s, you might have already figured some of this stuff out. But for people who are just leaving high school, or they're in they're at university, but they don't really know what they're doing. Sit down and really think about where you want your career to go. And once you've sort of done that, once you've found an industry or a job that you find interesting and that you think you could do for at least, 10 or 20 years, that you want to grow in that industry, then you just need to list down the steps that it's going to take in order for you to get there. So for some jobs, that means that you're going to need to get a degree, and that means that investing in yourself, you're going to need to put some money and some time in order to go to university and get that degree. And that might help you get a job easier in the field that you want. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go to university. And often that is not the smartest investment that you can make with your time and your money. For a lot of other industries, the best investment you could make is by getting an internship or just getting a job in the industry close to the job that you want, and then working your way up through the ranks and sort of expanding your experience in that industry. That can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than a piece of paper that is going to give you a quick path into a certain career. But figuring out what career you want might be neither of those things. If you want to take the entrepreneurial route that I have and you want to start a business, then that means that you probably won't want to do any of those things, and instead you'll want to focus on figuring out what business you want to build and also learning the foundations of business. And by the foundations of business, it's really two things. How can we identify painful problems that people have, and then figuring out a solution to those painful problems and packaging it into a product or a service that we can provide for people. So you really just, essentially what I'm saying here is you just need to start with working out what career you want, listing down the steps you need to take to get there, and starting to take those steps. Because once you've sort of sorted out your income, once you're in that position or you've got the ball rolling in which way you want your career to go, you can then work out how you're going to funnel that money into investments. Because the reality is that most people are not going to make enough money in their lifetime to save their way to retirement. You can't just save a proportion of your income and have enough left over for you to retire at a reasonable age. What you really need to do is you need to take a proportion of your income from an early age and consistently invest it in order to preserve that money and in order to grow it into more money, so that by the time you get to retirement, you have enough money to be financially free and in order to experience a retirement that you deserve. Now, when you're investing your money, you can invest in either businesses or real estate. Me personally, I like to invest in public businesses, and that's exactly what my channel is all about. We talk about how you can find really great businesses and how you can buy pieces of them off other people when they're offering them for a cheap price, and taking that business and then holding it for a very long time and experiencing the profits that come out of that business. However, of course, you don't have to do it yourself. You can get a professional fund manager to do it for you, or you could go the real estate investment way, which real estate is the biggest investment that most people will make, or even the only investment that most people will make is basically when they buy their house and they put a mortgage down and they start paying down that mortgage, and that investment in that property is usually the biggest or only investment that they make. And of course, you could go from there and you could buy another property and you could have real estate properties. That's another way that you could go. But essentially, what I'm trying to say here is that you really have two ways that you need to approach financial education and investing in yourself financially. It's not just investing, as people will tell you, to invest in stocks and invest in businesses. You need to make sure that you have a sustainable income source as well, because you can't make investments if you don't have the income to put into those investments. And if you don't constantly have more money coming in and you just have a stagnant investment portfolio, then it's not going to grow and it's not going to be as effective as it could be over the very long term. So this was a little bit of a deconstructed video. I was just sort of talking off the top of my head and explaining what I think you should do if you're in your 20s. But essentially, there's three major areas you should be focusing on. And the moment you start focusing on these areas, the moment you will start to experience massive increases in the positivity in your life. And those areas, as I've said, are health, your relationships, and your finances. And if you're just starting out and you've never really thought about this stuff at all, that's completely fine. It's great that you're starting to think about it now. Just pick one that you find the most interesting. Finance is probably the least interesting, or maybe not. If you're watching my channel, then maybe it is the most interesting. But pick one and focus on it and learn everything you can about it. And by learn everything, I just mean read books and start researching. And don't worry if you're completely in the dark. That is how everyone is when they go into a topic. But just start learning what you can, and you'll start thinking about questions that you have and learn the answers to those questions, and you will slowly expand your knowledge, and every day that you do this, it will become clearer and clearer for you. And just the process of going through taking short-term sacrifices for the long term will drastically improve your life, and it will improve your ability to take on life and to live a really happy life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you did, make sure you leave a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, then let me know down in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to see more stock market content and you want to expand your financial education, then make sure you hit subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the future videos. But I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.